beautiful sound? Those are called rolled chords, and today I'm going to teach you what they are and how to play them. I'm Christy-Lyn from Learning the Harp, where we make playing the harp feel simple and doable. So if that sounds good to you, then make sure you subscribe and click that little bell to receive notifications, because we put up new videos every week and I'd love to see you again. Have a look over here. This is what rolled chords look like in sheet music. So you can see a chord and then you see a wiggly line, and that wiggly line changes the chord from being a block chord to being a rolled chord. So you can hear how instead of the notes all sounding together, they are played one by one in quick succession. Now the problem is, when we learn to play rolled chords, we want to have this beautiful, lush, relaxing sound, and it should just be so peaceful. But when we think of the notes as being in quick succession, we start to get really stressed, and when you're stressed, you can't play rolled chords. You need to be really relaxed when you're playing rolled chords. So I have a strategy that I'm going to share with you today. It's going to help you to be less stressed when you're learning to play rolled chords. But before we get to my strategy, I just wanted to ask you, how long had you been playing the harp when you first tried to play rolled chords? Or maybe today is your first time. Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. My strategy for rolled chords is to think of it as one movement rather than to think of it as individual notes that you play in succession. Many people talk about a rolled chord as if it's an arpeggio that you play really fast, but I rather like to think of it as a block chord that you play slowly in one movement, rolling from the bottom to the top, kind of like thinking of it as a wave. So when preparing to play rolled chords, let's practice this wave movement. So you can put your two hands out like this, and then I want you to close the fingers into the palm of your hand, but instead of closing them all together, we're going to close them in a wave going from that side to the top, going from the pinky finger, closing it in a wave, like when one finger closes, then the next finger closes, then the next, then the next, but we're thinking of it as one movement. That's a wave. So you can practice doing that with your two hands next to each other like this, rolling it into the palm of your hand as this lovely wave movement. And it's easy, isn't it? Might take a little bit of practice, but not too stressful. Just a wave movement from the bottom to the top. Now let's try playing a rolled chord. So I want you to put your third finger on middle C, your second finger on the E above that, and your thumb on G. And we're going to first start out by playing it as a block chord. So you're going to place those three fingers in your triad, you're going to squeeze them, and then you're going to play them all together. And remember, when you're playing them all together, that you're going to be closing those fingers straight into your palm. So you squeeze on the strings and then you close into your palm and the thumb closes over the top. Let's try that again. Squeeze and close down into your palm. Now we're going to try it as a rolled chord. So again, put 3, 2, 1 on your C triad. And we're going to start by squeezing the strings and then just play them all the way from the bottom to the top with that roll. The reason we have to squeeze it is because it's like we're loading the fingers. We don't want to be just squeezing the one, then the next, and the next, because then you'll be too slow. We've got to squeeze them all together as if we're going to play a block chord, but then you just happen to roll that block chord from the bottom to the top. So let's place those fingers and squeeze and then roll. And just think of it as closing into your palm from the bottom to the top. Now don't worry if it's not exactly even. That's normal when you're starting out. Don't judge the evenness right now. We just want to get the idea. We just want to get the feeling of a rolled chord. And if you start to feel a bit tense and you're not quite getting it, then come away from your harp and practice your wave again. Just closing the fingers one by one into the palm in this quick wave from the bottom to the top, and then come back to your harp, place for the block chord, and you can play the block chord on its own. And then you place it again, squeeze and roll from the bottom to the top. Now let's try the other hand, the same thing. Place those 3 fingers on C, E, and G. Make sure your positioning is nice. Squeeze those strings and play them together as a block chord. And let's try that again. Close it all the way into your palm, and so that it ends up with that nice relaxed closed hand. And now we're going to try it again, but this time we're going to roll them from the bottom to the top, like a nice wave. So squeeze those strings and then roll. Make sure you're closing completely and also floating off. That releases the tension. Let's place again and try rolling again. And don't worry if it's not exactly even. We just want to get the idea of that wave rolling from the bottom to the top. Now, if you're finding that it's quite uneven, that's totally normal. It might sound like this, or... And so now we do want to slow it down to work on the evenness. So what I would do is take it slower and slower and slower until eventually you're slow enough that it is even. So maybe I play it fast like this, and it's not very even. So I slow it down a little bit. But it's still uneven, so I get even slower. Now it's even. So now I can start to slowly work up the speed to get back to the speed I was at, but hopefully even. Making sure you're closing it down completely each time into your palm. That's what's going to allow you to stay relaxed. Getting faster. And now we're going to practice our rolled chords at all different speeds and all different dynamics, loud and soft, to work on control. And this is going to be alongside just doing the fast ones where we just get the idea of the wave. You know, you just do it fast, even if it's not even. And then you're also going to take it slower sometimes. And maybe loud or soft. And louder. And slower. And that just helps you to work on control so that you can do exactly what you want your fingers to do. We don't want to only work on the evenness, because then you start out slowly and it feels like you'll never be able to play fast, and which is when you become stressed and like, I'll never get there. But we want to be able to play fast even if it's uneven, and slow to work on evenness at the same time. So what you can do now is anytime you see a chord in your music, for the next week or two, just roll every single chord. And this is not what you would do in the long term, but it's going to help you to get as much practice as possible with your rolled chords. And did you know that when you see a chord in the music that doesn't have that wiggly line, like this, you can actually roll that chord if you want to. It's kind of like our creative license as a harpist. We roll chords when we feel like it will sound nice, and we also roll chords whenever you see the wiggly line. But if you want an exercise specifically to work on rolled chords, then I'm going to do that with you in the next video. So click over here.